In this video, we're going to be breaking down 3 of the cheapest suburbs that you can buy in across southeast Queensland at this point in time. And if you stick around to the end, the third suburb is actually a suburb that I've recently purchased 2 properties in myself. So make sure you stick around to find out what that suburb is. Now, the purpose of this video is to give you an idea that there are still affordable suburbs out there within the greater Brisbane region. We're going to be looking across Moreton Bay, across Logan, and across Ipswich. So let's start off on the north side of Brisbane in a suburb in Moreton Bay. Now, this is not the cheapest suburb, but it's a relatively cheap suburb at this point in time, and it's known as Bray Park. Now, Emily and I actually purchased a property in Bray Park ourselves in the middle of 2024. We purchased a property affectionately known as the Bray Park Bomb. And the house was renovated within a period of 2 to 3 months, and the granny flat is due to be finished in the next week at that property. Now, the house that we purchased cost us $640,000, and we ended up doing around an $80,000 to $85,000 renovation on the home. That brings in the cost of the home to around $740,000 to $750,000, including the renovation. Now, Bray Park is the most expensive suburb on today's list of 3 cheaper options, with a median house price currently sitting around the $800,000 to $810,000 mark. It's located just 20 to 25 kilometres north of Brisbane CBD and runs along the northern train line, which heads out to the Redcliffe Peninsula. That's one of the great things about Bray Park, is that for Moreton Bay, it's centrally located towards Brisbane City on that 20 to 25k range. So you can catch the train in towards Brisbane City, or you can actually go out to the Redcliffe Peninsula for lifestyle if you want that as well. So it's very central in terms of Moreton Bay, and that means it has good access to schools, to infrastructure, to transport, making it a suburb to pick on today's list. The area has seen strong price growth in the last year and significant demand due to its relative affordability compared to some more expensive suburbs in Brisbane City Council. It's a relatively family-friendly area, and rents have also crept up a little bit, but haven't kept up with as much of the price growth. So we're seeing a little bit of yield compression, but you'd expect around a 4 to 4.5% gross yield for a standard house purchase in these areas. To give you an idea of my personal numbers on our Bray Park Bomb renovation, we purchased the house for $640,000, all in on the house around $750,000. The home's probably worth around $800,000 to $850,000 if it were to sell it as is, and the rent is probably around $550 to $600 per week. Given that Emily and I undertook a granny flat, which has been going on for a long time now and is due to finish in the next week or two, I'm expecting the granny flat to rent for around $350 to $400 per week, and with the main house renting for about $550 per week, with a house and granny flat set up in Bray Park, as an example location, we're looking around $900 to $950 per week of rent for a house and granny flat. And that total cost is probably going to land around $900,000 to $950,000 in terms of the total cost or value of the property post all of the renovations. Now, that granny flat's been a little on the expensive side with building delays and material costs and things like that. And certainly if I was to do it again, I wouldn't do it from a renovation point of view. I'd definitely do a standalone granny flat rather than trying to renovate a granny flat in a pre-existing space. But if you're looking in that Moreton Bay region, Bray Park is certainly an option to have a look at for an investment. There's great opportunity there, and have a look at some of the surrounding suburbs as well for that value proposition. Now let's head directly south of Brisbane City into Logan City Council. Now, if you've followed property investment forums or YouTube videos around Logan, people tend to talk down Logan, and I actually grew up in Logan City. I grew up in a suburb called Daisy Hill, but the median house price in Daisy Hill sits around $950,000 up to the low $1 million mark at this point in time. The suburb I've picked is just south of Daisy Hill, located along the M1, which is the Pacific Highway, which leads from Brisbane to the Gold Coast. And the suburb I've picked on today's list is called Beenleigh. Now, the reason I've picked Beenleigh is it's still relatively affordable. You can purchase a house for around $700,000 at this point in time, with cheaper houses still being in the $600,000s, and then you've got more expensive homes up into the $800K mark. You're looking at roughly 25 to 30 kilometers south from Brisbane CBD, and there is really bad traffic if you're driving in business hours in towards the city. So just be wary of that, even though it looks like it's fast on, if you're driving in the evening or something like that. actually getting into the city, looking at the traffic, can be quite dire. But one of the good things is there is a train line that runs to Beenleigh Station. And Beenleigh is also known as a separate town centre for Logan City Council. There's two key town centres in Logan City. We've got Springwood, which is on the north side of Logan City, and Beenleigh, which is located on more of the south side of Logan City Council. And so for me, looking at the value proposition of Beenleigh, around $700,000 for a standard size block on 600 square metres with a 3-bed, 1-bath home, only 25 to 30Ks from Brisbane CBD. You've got access to Brisbane, you've got access to the Gold Coast, you've got properties that you can buy on bigger blocks and value add. You could also look at subdivision in Logan City Council or larger granny flats if you were able to buy bigger blocks. So there's a lot to like about investing in an area like Beenleigh. And there's also some surrounding suburbs which have gentrified, which have higher owner-occupied percentages. For example, Pimpama and Ormo are new build estates south of Beenleigh, and homes in those areas go for $850,000 to $900,000. And areas like Eden's Landing tend to be more family-friendly and a little bit more expensive. And so you can buy in an area like Beenleigh, which is going to continue to slowly gentrify as younger families move into these areas and renovate the homes and spruce them up over time. So if you're looking for an affordable investment opportunity, it's certainly something to look at. Now, the area does have a slightly higher percentage of renters because it is a more affordable price point, around that 40 to 45% mark in terms of renter percentage. And it does have fluctuations in days of market. So just be aware of those key metrics. But from the fundamentals and from the development potential that's there, as well as the location and the train line, I really like Beenleigh as an affordable opportunity to buy in 2025 if you're looking for that type of property. And this leads me into suburb number 3 on today's list. The suburb that I've recently purchased 2 investment properties myself with development potential. And I'm really excited to be chatting with builders at this point in time to look to add to the housing supply that we've got here in Brisbane. So I'm looking at adding 2 dwellings, so 2 full-size houses on the 2 purchases that I've made. And the suburb that I bought in is in Ipswich City Council, and it's called Bundamba. Now, to me, the suburb of Bundamba is a gem. It's got price affordability, it's got proximity to Brisbane CBD, and as well, you'll see this is a common thing from today's video, is it's also got a train line. When we're looking at Brisbane City and seeing another million, 1.5 million people coming into the city over the next few decades, the city is going to continue to grow. And Ipswich is one of the fastest growing cities in Australia. And the population of Ipswich is expected to double in the next decade or two. And so if Ipswich is going to grow from 200 to 250,000 people up to 500,000 people, that's really exciting for areas like Bundamba, which are located along train lines, which have access to the motorway, for example, the Logan motorway, which runs between Ipswich and Logan, as well as price affordability at this point in time and bigger blocks. And so the blocks that I was able to purchase had that development upside. So looking at secondary dwellings or strata titling or subdividing. So lots of options there in terms of being able to add value and create more supply. Now, this supply is infill. It's not new build supply in an area like Bundamba. It's taking bigger blocks and adding another 100 square metre home, like a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home for say $300,000, creating more supply for families and renters to live in, but it's not mass supply. Now, Ipswich does have areas where that mass supply takes place, like Ripley Valley, like Springfield, Greenbank, for example. So there's some areas you want to be very wary of where there's big oncoming supply. And those areas are going to have massive population growth, but they don't necessarily have this scarcity, in my opinion, from an investment point of view. Now, the average price for a home at this point in time in Bundamba is sitting around $630,000. And the suburb's located roughly 35 kilometres west of Brisbane's CBD. And so it's about a 45-minute drive and about an hour train ride into Brisbane, and it's only a couple of stops from Ipswich CBD. So you're about 3 stops away from Ipswich and about 8 to 10 stops from Brisbane, and so it's reasonable if you want to use the train line. One of the big things about Ipswich City Council, not just Bundamba as a whole, is you need to be wary of the flood overlays and you need to be wary of the soil testing. Now, I was careful with the 2 properties that I purchased in Bundamba. I purchased up on the hill, away from the train line and away from the commercial areas where there tends to be a lot more flooding. I actually purchased these investments post-Cyclone Alfred, which is hopefully long gone from our minds, but it was an opportunity for me to purchase these bigger blocks with the development upside potential And I'm also looking to add a bit of value to the front homes as well. There are also some other major amenities which I think are a really big draw card and another reason that I chose to purchase in Bundamba for my own investments. They've got a Costco, a Bunnings, the Bundamba TAFE, the local primary school and high school all within a close proximity. So there's a lot going for it in terms of being a hub. There's also industry there. So there's an industrial precinct down along the main road, which is that commercial area. And so there's jobs and infrastructure in this place already. Now, the one thing I will say is you've got to be wary of the socio-economic factors. When we're talking about affordable or cheap suburbs in Greater Brisbane, this doesn't just include Bundamba, this includes Beenleigh and Bray Park in Moreton Bay. We need to be wary that affordable price points are likely to have higher renter pools, they are likely to have lower household incomes and potentially lower socio-economic tenants. And so putting in place a property manager that's trusted and local is very important. And so when we work with clients in our buyer's agency here at Purpose Property, that's something we're very careful about in terms of tenant selection and making sure our clients have a property manager in place that knows the area and is careful with their tenant selection. So just be wary of that. That's probably the biggest detractor from buying in more affordable price points is the potential risk and damages. But make sure you've got your insurances in place and make sure you've got a good quality property manager who can run those background checks for you to make sure you're not ending up with a lemon of a tenant. Now, the idea of this video is to spark your interest that it is still possible to buy freestanding houses here in Southeast Queensland at a more affordable price point. The areas that we've looked across Moreton Bay, Logan and Ipswich range between 800,000 down to 700,000 in Beenleigh and 600,000 in Ipswich in Bundamba. And so there still are those more affordable houses on 600 square meters plus of land with established homes in that price range. Now, if you want to sit down with myself and we can have a free strategy session where we can talk through your current situation, what you're looking to buy in the next 3 to 6 months and how we can help you achieve that purchase, then head over to purposeproperty.com.au. We'll sit down, have a chat about your situation, talk through your goals and how we can help you make that next property purchase here in the Brisbane market. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Which of these 3 suburbs would you buy in currently in 2025? And make sure you give this video a click over here because YouTube really thinks that's the one you need to watch next. Thanks for sticking around. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.